What's up, AGO men? National Staff Owen Gillespie Welch here. Here, starting a new series for little tips and tricks and how-tos for each executive role. So I was just kind of thinking about AGO and training for new executive roles. Sometimes I know some things can fall through the cracks. Some men feel unprepared as they take up their executive roles. So this series will help address some of the common tasks and common responsibilities of all the executive roles and a bit about how to do them. For other roles, I will be interviewing a few alumni brothers that have done their roles effectively, that will share their wisdom and guidance and how they did their roles and how the Lord led them in their roles. So tonight we're going to start with the secretary role. Now this role may not be one of the more glamorous roles, especially on a resume, but it's still a very essential and important function of a collegiate chapter. So the secretary is the chief administrator of the chapter. The two main responsibilities of the secretary are one, to take minutes at every AGO meeting, and two, to maintain and consult the chapter bylaws as need be. So with the bylaws, your chapter will have those on file, usually some kind of Google Drive or shared file formats that you will have access to. So when that comes up in a meeting, when there's a consultation of the bylaws, if there's a question of eligibility for a certain executive role, or the policies regarding certain things that may come up, you are usually the one that will go to that and consult those. And other secretaries may have other responsibilities at a chapter. I know at some chapters, sometimes they share a joke, share a meme, or even ask pledges knowledge during the general part of the meeting. But these two roles, the taking of the minutes and the consulting of the bylaws, is what the secretaries at all chapters will be doing. So let's jump into a bit about minutes. So minutes are the most important thing you will do as secretary. They keep track of what the business of the chapter is week to week for not only the chapter itself, but for us and national leadership. Contrary to some popular belief, we do always read the minutes. Actives know that I have texted them about some stuff I've seen in the minutes and reached out. So yeah, this is a very important role to kind of keep your chapter on track with business and keep things organized and keep us informed about what's going on with your chapter week to week. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of show y'all the minutes template that we have on Redmine. So first, let me point this out where it is on Redmine. So when you log into Redmine, this is the main screen. So when you go to Officer Manual Secretary, scroll down way to the bottom, in the File section is this blank minutes template that I'm about to share with y'all right here. So let's go to that. So this is the standard minutes templates that we have for the secretary on file. And this is like not required that you use this. I know some chapters use other different formats that have been passed down or created by their chapter. But as long as we have minutes that show the roll call, show the different sections for general meeting and active meeting, then that's okay to use. But this is the template we've developed and up for 2 chapters for them to use. Okay, so at the top, you want to make sure your header's right. So at the top, we have chapter name here and meeting date. So this will just be a sample because this is an example, but label that by your chapter date. So we're going to put in today's date for this example. This is 10/14/2021. And then note the general start time of the general meeting when the president hits his gavel and declares the meeting is in session. So say we start at 6 p.m. All right, and this is the roll call. This is very important to roll call. So not only do you want to mark whoever is active there, you want to mark who is also there as a pledge, as a guest, or any defined alumni, and what roles they may have if they're just a guest. So an example, so usually instead of A, we like to prefer to list active numbers. So those put mine as an example. For the name, you can list it just first and last like such, or you can include the pledge name as well. Spell my name there. Interesting. Something like that. Whatever it may be, as long as it's clear who the active brother is on that. And just mark if they're there. Pledges will be marked as well. So pledges are marked with just a P. And say you have Joe Johnson, random name. It's a pledge. Mark if he is present. And for alumni, if they have a defined role, say it's your chapter advisor, mark them as CA. If it's your counselor, mark them DC. National staff, NS, or just another alumni, maybe just mark them as, say, Z260. Just an example there. So yeah, just make sure everyone who is present at the meeting is marked. So general meeting is open to everyone, not just AGO men only. It can be people who aren't affiliated with the fraternity, it can be pledges, and it can be alumni as well. First thing is the approval of agenda. Make sure it's noted who proposes the approval of agenda. In this example, I'll just put me. Seconded by, Max, shout to Max here. And then if any amendments need to be noted to the proposed agenda, say a brother has another announcement that he didn't get a chance to put into that agenda before it was put on the table to be approved. Just note it as such, say, treasurer wants to add a proposed raise in. Just an example of what could be potentially added before it's approved. And then you take a quick vote on that. Say you got 12 yeses, no nos, no abstentions. Make sure each of these is marked, and then marked if it is passed or failed. So the first thing as we do is Christ Center Fraternity is open up every meeting with a Devo. So just note who the Devo guest speaker is. In this example, we will put Max as such. And then take notes about what passage they use. If they use a certain topic, say they want to talk about trust, or they want to do a Devo on Luke 9. And then just kind of note about what they talk about and the points they bring up for the Devo. So once the business of the meeting is started, make sure for each executive officer that talks that when they have announcements or when they have points of discussion, that is noted in their correct section. So when the president brings up, say, PISMO plans, relevant because it's next week, kind of note about what he brings up. Say he brings up like who's driving, and then if there's any discussion points afterwards, say in this section, if there's a discussion about what practice should be, note like for like 6 or 7 p.m. on Thursday. Everyone can make it then. Just kind of note what the discussion is. If there's anything of note that comes up, say someone can't make it, someone has to miss that, just make it as such, make it kind of clear. So make sure each of the executive officers that talk, that the notes correspond to their position on the minutes as well. Appointed officers are chair positions. So this is like rush chair, steward, IFC liaison, AD Chi liaison, any official chair role, and then any announcement they have. So let's put an example here. Say the rush chairman wants to talk about rush recap, what was effective. That's approved. Could have been improved. Just something like that, and kind of note the discussion that follows afterwards from the chapter. And then chapter advisor may have something to say as well. You can put that there as well. And then once general meeting closes, note the close time of it. So say it closes at 6:45. Then once everyone who is not an activated AGO brother, both in active and alumni stating, clears out and the active meeting commences, note the start time of that. So note it as, say, 7 o'clock here. Another approval of agenda, because active meeting will almost always have announcements and discussions that are not present in general meeting, usually around the pledges or around non-AGO members. So same thing, approval. An active brother proposes it, then an active brother seconds it. Make sure you note both, and then note any amendments to the agenda, and then take notes of the votes to it. Say 12 vote yes, 0 no, 0 abstain, and just note if it passed. Typically, you want to go through the approval of previous meetings and approve those as well. Secretary, you are responsible for that as well. So usually it's proposed by the secretary. Just put me an example, seconded by another active brother. And then any amendments noted, or if there's any unfinished business, note that in here. And then again, take a quick vote. Say 12, 0, 0. It passes. Same thing as general meeting. When a designated officer talks, all designated officers should have a period where they can make announcements or make discussion as need be. Note that, and note that for the corresponding box for each executive officer. Something that is, for example, what could come up in active meeting, doesn't come general meeting, is like report and update on the pledge class and kind of notes from the pledge master about what they're seeing, how the pledges are doing, any requirements still need to be done. Same thing with appointed officers, if anything, just active meeting. Same thing with chapter advisor. And then if there's any unfinished business, so this are motions that are on the table. And so if this is on the floor from a previous meeting, you want to note that here, that it's on the floor now, and then note the vote on it if it's being voted on. So say there is new motion on the table. So say, I note a motion. You want to note the entire thing. So I, Owen, got rid of the underline here. So I make a motion to raise dues to and note any discussion for it as well. If there's any brothers that have gripes with it, or just want to have further clarifications, or just further affirmation of the motion. And then you want to typically table these motions for at least a week, let it sit, pray about it before you vote on it. But if there is something urgent, say you need to have an emergency approval of expenses for a trip that's going on that upcoming weekend, you can put on the table at that meeting and take a vote on it. Then just note the votes on it, and if it passes or fails. Then always we want to make a motion to close the meeting. So this is always proposed by a brother. So same thing, brother in active standing proposes it, brother in active standing will second it, and then take a quick chapter vote. Yeah, yays or nays, and if it vote, and just note here, you don't need to note the exact number of votes if it passes or fails, and then note the closing time. We'll say it closes at 8:14 in this example. Save the minutes. So these is kind of an example. Get back to that. What kind of like a thorough good minutes look like. This comes from my chapter when I was active. Just kind of scroll through kind of quickly, not really share too much detail, but this is kind of what it looks like. Noted business on the table. We had nominations for elections this meeting, and all were noted by the secretary. So this is kind of an example of what good minutes look like. So now I'm going to show you all how to upload the minutes to our website. So once your minutes are done, you go to your chapter on the right. So in this case, it would be Alpha because they're first, and go to the top left corner with the yellow box, press new issue. And then you mark the tracker as minutes, say minutes 10, 14, 21. Usually I could do a dash or slash format for the date. And then just make a little note here, Owen is using this as a teaching example. All right, and then you want to assign this to your chapter advisor. If you don't have a chapter advisor, assign it to your district counselor. If you don't have a district counselor, assign it to the vice president. I'm going to assign this to myself so no one gets an unnecessary notification for this example. And then mark the date that you've uploaded it. So it should be today's date. Then you click on your file. and then just press create. And boom, minutes are uploaded. They have been noted. I'm going to delete this so this isn't given on the screen notification. So yeah, that is the nuts and bolts of how to take minutes and how to upload said minutes, and a bit about the secretary role.